Welcome back to Module 2, Lesson 1, Topic 4. How was that last exercise? I hope that uncovered areas of perhaps things that could lead into hypocrisy, Pharisaical living, religiosity, all kinds of intrapersonal conflicts. So I hope that was helpful. Let's dive into our last topic called substantive conflict. These are the conflicts of compromising core values and morals. This is the area that theological disputes come from. The issue is not over incompatibilities of personalities or people, but over noble causes like doctrine, church government, marriage, global issues, humanitarian issues, whether the ends justify the means or the extent of involvement or investment is worth it. This type of conflict can be very healthy and perhaps the most noble wrestling of spirit worth having. However, when causes and conflicts become more important than the integrity of character and communication, even the most noblest of conflicts can backslide into intra and interpersonal conflicts. Does that make sense? Let me explain one example of a substantive conflict that I have greatly struggled with over the years. It's had to do with the sovereignty of God by allowing my daughters, to be sexually violated by their paternal grandfather. This is a man who claimed to have loved our family. He cried with tears when his son was ordained and became a pastor. Since he lives in another state 2 time zones away, he only saw his grandchildren once a year in the summer and only for 1 week out of that summer. Yet, for 2 summers in a row in our home, while we were home, he molested 2 of our little babies. They were 5 and 7 years old in another area of our house. Then, after a year of pouring ourselves into this 76-year-old man who confessed, repented, surrendered to the lordship of Christ, he turned around and accused our 2 girls of initiating the whole thing. This conflict messed me up mentally, maritally, emotionally, spiritually. During this entire traumatic season, we were told by our sending church and mission board not to speak to anyone about it. You want to talk about feeling abandoned, isolated, and forgotten? Where was the church, our shepherd, and at the very least, their prayer support? After a month of silence, I contacted the pastor who commissioned us to kind of restart. They commissioned us to restart a struggling church in northern Michigan. And so when I would update him and let him know how things were going, and I started asking him for prayer regarding this matter with our daughters, he confessed to me that he hadn't been praying. In fact, he said he was trying to push it out of his mind because he couldn't stand to think about it. In the end, I had to somehow reconcile the sovereignty of God versus the pervertedness of a man that ultimately cost me almost everything, along with the neglect and abandonment of our authorities within the church. Yet, by the grace of God, after applying the principles I'm about to share with you, I'm walking in freedom, forgiveness, and seeing it from God's perspective, an omniscient, omnipresent, good character. God continued to heal, restore, and redeem all that was lost in the lives of my daughters, family, and new marriage. Here's an important footnote I want to share with you. It is so important for you to know this. Forgiveness does not necessarily mean that every relationship should be returned to the status it once was. The man who violated my daughters and our family's trust and stability will never have a relationship with me or his granddaughters again. That is a lifetime consequence due to his sin, not because of our unwillingness or a lack of forgiveness or commitment to pray for him. There's a big difference that makes all the difference in the world. We'll talk more about this in Lesson 2 as I explain the 10 principles of forgiveness. But for now, please take a moment and record in your journal or workbook any substantive conflicts that you struggle with.